I wrote this song for all my no-good friends who's just getting by, just like me. Leaving the bar, my breath's as hard as regular gasoline. Fire up a bone while I'm swerving home, blowing smoke like a Model T. Wake up to a cup as black as tar. Go to work, get beat like a mule. I'm just as empty as I am poor, so I'm running on fuel.
Good morning, folks. Brewcephas here. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Saturday. Cheers. Okay, so as promised, today we're gonna keg the Not Dale's Pale Ale. Okay, the first part of this video, I'm just gonna show how a keg comes apart, and I'm gonna make sure every little piece of this is super clean before I keg anything. Okay, it's a brand new keg. As far as I know, it's never been cleaned. So of course, the first thing I'm gonna do is clean it before I put any of my hard-earned beer inside here. Okay, so if you want to skip ahead to the part where I actually keg the Not Dale's, that's cool, but we're gonna be here having fun taking this thing apart and cleaning it, so you might as well stick around for that. Okay, if you already know, go ahead and skip ahead. This first part, like I said, is mainly for the beginner who's never had one of these things apart and maybe a little bit overwhelmed by taking it apart. I know before I kegged my first beer, when my first keg came in the mail a couple years ago, if I'm scared of something, I tend to put it off. It's like I don't want to even touch that thing because I don't know anything about it. I watched a few videos, maybe that's why you're here. And that kind of demystified the process. Seeing someone else take one apart, and then once I did it myself, it's super, super easy, okay? And I'll show you how to get every part super, super clean, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do with this 11/16 wrench, I'm gonna unscrew these posts. Okay, there's one side that's labeled in, the other side that's labeled out. Okay, and once I get the pieces apart, I'm going to show you the difference between the insides of the in post and the insides of the out post. Okay, and I'll kind of explain why those differences are what they are. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is start with the out post. And you'll notice that it's quite a bit different than the in post once I get it taken off, but only in certain ways. And you'll notice this pipe, you can't just pull it straight out. It's got a curve to it. And that's so when it sits in the keg, it's coming from the corner and you're getting every last drop of beer in there, okay? So be careful taking this apart. You'll notice that when I pull it off, there's the rod itself, or whatever the hell this thing's called. And then inside, it's a little bit intricate. We have a spring. We have the pin, and then we have the post itself, or whatever you want to call that. So you might want to pay attention about how these things fit together, okay? If you notice how I took it apart, you can refer back to this video to see how to put it back together if you need to do that. So what I'm going to do with all these small pieces is I'm going to dip some cleaner, and then each of the small pieces the pin, the spring, the post. I'm gonna let those soak back here in their own little tub of cleaner. Okay? You'll notice there are gaskets around each of these little pieces. Ideally, you want to really, some people would take them off, get up under there, make sure everything underneath those gaskets is clean. At least for this one, it's easier because it rolls down. Make sure it's clean. You can roll that gasket back up. Okay, do your best. I'm just gonna dump this in the cleaner jug here. This goes back in its own little cleaner. Okay, usually I depressurize it first. There's this little pin on top that you can pull to let any pressure out. Obviously there's no pressure in it because I've already removed one of the posts. Now I'm gonna do the end post and I'll show you the difference. So the end is obviously where the gas goes in, and then out is where the beer flows out. So instead of that big long post that came out of the last one, the out, because the beer has to flow out, the end where the gas goes, there's a little version of that, okay? So it's just a tiny little guy. I'm gonna throw him in the cleaner. I know that goes into the end. And as far as the inner workings, they're exactly the same, okay? So the spring and the little pin and the post itself, those are interchangeable, okay? So I'm just gonna throw them in. All of those little pieces are exactly the same. The only thing that differs between the end post and the out post is that the end where the gas goes in has this little thing that goes in first. And of course, the out where the beer comes out has this. Okay, that's really the only difference. Pop our top. We got a good tight seal. You just pull the lever, the handle up on the top of your keg, maneuver this out. Okay. We want to get this nice and clean. I'll let it soak in our cleaner. Spoon's just in the way at this point. We got our keg apart. That's it. That's all the moving pieces. Nothing left, okay? Everything's unscrewed on top. There's no more parts. Okay. Making sure every part of the inside of this keg comes into contact with the cleaner, okay? And I think that cleaner has to maintain contact for 3 to 5 minutes, something like that, to ensure that everything's nice and clean. So I'm just gonna let it hang out there for a bit, okay? In the meantime, I can work on my little pieces. I can make sure I'm getting under those gaskets, okay? Making sure everything in here is nice and clean, okay? So it's not a brew day, but it's a home brew day. Don't forget, here in a minute, we're gonna actually keg the Not Dale's Pale Ale, and we're gonna get that whole process started there in the fridge. I'll show you how to use your carbon dioxide tank, your regulator. Okay, we'll go through all of that as we go. It's nice getting a nice early start, because when you finish, you have the rest of your day. But it's always nice getting out of bed super early, grabbing a cup of coffee, arranging your stuff so you can find everything, getting ready for the brew day or the project or whatever it may be, and just spending some time out here in the garage. And it's an excuse to have a breakfast beer too, which is great. Cheers, everybody. I'll come back when this has been soaking for a little while and when it's nice and clean, and we'll go ahead and put the posts back into the in and the out, and we'll be ready to put the Not Dales into the keg. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, so I've just been rotating the keg around inside this tub, making sure every surface of the inside has been in contact with the cleaner for 10 minutes, something like that. Okay, dump it in such a way as to make sure the cleaner has touched everything on the top as well as the bottom and all of the sides. Okay, so now we're gonna get this thing put back together. Let's start with our out, just because I got under that gasket. I made sure water went all the way through it. Okay, all that's nice and clean. The out. And actually that curves right down into the center. There's like a drop center in the bottom of this keg, and that outpost curves right down into that little pool. So you do get everything out of it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid back on because I don't want anything big getting in here while I'm working. Okay, so your post should fit flush all the way down in there, or that rod that we were talking about. Okay, remember the pin goes back in the skinny end of the spring. The post, or what I've been calling the post, everything then goes back inside it. Make sure that pin fits back up in there nicely. You don't want it to be off at all. Before I tighten anything down, I'm gonna get both sides put back together so nothing gets in. Okay, and then you'll remember in the other side, instead of the long post, we have the short one. Just drops down in the hole. Should go all the way down flush. Little pin goes in the skinny end. Everything goes back in the post. And it might be easier to drop that pin in first. Make sure it flushes. Drop the spring in. Screw her back on. Okay. So now that everything is at least back on and hand tight, nothing should be getting back in there. Okay. Go ahead and use my 11/16. That's probably standard to tighten everything back up. So now you've seen a keg cleaning, okay? That's how you clean a keg. Now, if I would have had a beer in there before, I would have probably brought out my scrub brush and put my hand down in there and really scrubbed everything out on top of letting it sit in the cleaner, okay? But since there's never been anything in here, to my knowledge, I bought it new. Even though there's a couple dents in the side, it's okay. I'm not gonna crank that, I'm not gonna try to break it. Okay, I'm gonna get it tight. Okay, and that's disassembling a keg, cleaning it, and putting it back together. Back together again. So now we can go get the beer, and we can get the beer in there. That's the next step. I bought a new water siphon, so I'm gonna make sure this thing's clean. I'm gonna go ahead and attach the hose to it. Make sure that's all clean before we use it. Next step, like I said, is getting the beer in the keg. And then I'll show you how to attach the hoses, how to use the CO2 tank, the regulator, all that stuff, and then we'll get it in the fridge. Okay, next step, beer. Cerveza. Cheers. Okay, so we got a beer and some beer. Doesn't get much better than that. Cheers, everybody. Let's go ahead and get this beer in this keg. It's a beer. What more can I say? Ooh. Got some nice trub. What do they call it? Oh, I smell those hops. So let's pop the top. We're gonna get this back in the cleaner. And we're gonna exchange it for our auto siphon that we've had in the cleaner for some time now. Hose goes clear to the bottom of the keg for oxidation reasons, or to avoid getting oxygen into the beer. We want the hose to go all the way to the bottom instead of splashing. Okay, so we might need something to sit this on. Thought my hose was longer. Story of my life. Okay, just until we start flowing, because I do want this to be lower than this. Okay. It's flowing just fine right now. Cheers, everybody. Okay, so we got it in there. Got a full keg of beer. Let's not waste any time getting the lid put back on. Make sure that gasket is tight. Close her off. Now nothing's getting in. Let's take a quick sample for gravity's sake. Okay, so while you were away, I got all my hoses sterilized. The red hose is gonna be your gas hose, okay? For whatever reason, they chose that color for the gas. I ordered my hoses separately from my keg, so I had to tighten down all my hose clamps. Make sure you check that if you order these, because these were loose, and last night I had to come out and tighten them all. Okay. Make sure everything's screwed in tightly. Holly, go tightly. Okay, so the gas goes in. Okay, you have to pull up on this little collar. Down. And you'll hear it click in. I'm sure you heard that. Okay. This gas hose is longer than the one I had last time, which is cool. Okay, so you'll connect your regulator. You're gonna need a regulator, this piece right here. It controls the PSI. It tells you what the PSI is going into your keg, and it tells you how many PSI is left in your tank, which is nice. Okay, and you can turn the PSI in the keg up and down, which I'll show you. You'll notice that it gives you stouts and porter ranges, lager ranges. I don't know if you can see that. Ranges for maybe a lambic. So you kind of know, but do your research on the internet and make sure you know where you want to set your PSI. Okay. So this regulator just screws in to the CO2 tank right here. And then your gas hose is gonna connect to the bottom of your regulator, okay? Got my 9/16 wrench. Again, I don't know if that's standard or what, but. So now that I got my gas hose fully connected, I don't need to worry about my tap hose yet. I'll show you what you want to do when you first get this all connected. We need to pump CO2 in there and get the oxygen out to make sure there's no oxygen left in this keg, okay? All we want in this keg is carbon dioxide, and I'll show you how we're gonna do that. This is the off position. This is the on position. So make sure on your regulator, this is vertical, okay, to turn it on. This, you can see more pressure, turn to the right, less pressure, turn to the left. It should be there for you, but I gotta turn my tank on, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure this is on less pressure. Okay, so I'm gonna turn my gas on. I've always heard you wanna turn this up to about 30 PSI to begin with, just to seat this lid on with the gasket, okay? And then as it's pumping it in, you're gonna release it, let it fill back up. Release it, let it fill back up. So that's how we expel the oxygen from the keg, okay? Making sure that there's only CO2 between the line where the beer's at and the top of the keg, okay? They say do it about 3 times. I don't know, I usually do it about 5 times. It's at 30 PSI. We don't want to lose all of our CO2 though. You'll notice I still have about 1,000 PSI of gas. We don't need to order it till it gets down here, okay? Just to be on the safe side. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it down to where I want it. I'm gonna release off the 30. And now I'm gonna turn it up to about 8-ish. And that's where I'm gonna leave it for a few days. Another thing that's a good idea to do is use your sanitizer water, your cleaner, something clean, not just tap water, and spray your ports and make sure nothing's bubbling on you, because if it's bubbling on you, you've got a leak, okay? So I do have a small leak right here. I thought I was losing a little too much pressure. Okay. So obviously I need to tighten that hose clamp. So I'm gonna do that. Damn it. And then I'll come back. Ugh, I need a damn beer. So I'll tell you what I did. After a trip to the hardware store and 14 bucks, buying those damn hose clamps, this hose sucks. It started leaking out the top. So I got lucky today. What I did, I put my old gas hose back on from my old keg, and not a single leak. Take my damn word for it. I wouldn't be putting it in the fridge if there was a leak in it. So I've got my tap connected, I've got the gas connected, everything's good to go. Let's get it in the fridge, let's set the PSI we want, and then we'll come back and we'll talk numbers, and we'll see where the Not Dales turned out. Cheers. Okay, so I've got my picnic tap connected, just leave it hanging. I've got the gas connected, no more leaks there. Make sure I put them in the right damn posts. Out and perfect. Okay, got it connected down here No more leaks. Remember, this is off, this is on. Okay, we're going to set it to about 8 psi. Set it and forget it. Okay, as this beer gets colder, supposedly it holds CO2 more. So after a couple days, that should stop dropping. Okay. Okay. So final gravity came out to 1010. If you remember, we started out at 1046. So from 1046, finished out to 1010, came up with 4.7% ABV. Okay. Last time I made it, it was 5.8%, but my starting gravity was also 1058. I didn't hit 1058, I hit 1046, okay? But it finished a little bit more. This time it got down to 1010. Last time it only finished off at 1014, okay? So I'm pretty happy with 4.7. That's almost 5%. This is gonna be a nice pale ale, okay? Thanks for joining me today. Sorry I couldn't take you to the hardware store. We ended up scrapping all of that anyway, so whatever. No harm, no foul. Have a good one. Keep that sanitizer, sterilizer handy. Happy kegging, happy drinking, happy brewing, happy everything. Cheers.